Welcome to the KC Stars podcast, where we talk to people in the local film community. And I have with me Matt Donovan, who is an actor, writer, and designer. So
That's
he'll
right.
tell a little bit about himself and he'll explain what designer is as well. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so you put it exactly right. I'm an actor, which is why I'm here today, primarily, I think. And I also, in order to do acting, I find myself halfway writing many things, and that never really hasn't yet really come of any actual production or anything like that, but what it has served is like material for me and other actors to play with and work on together and kind of workshop and that sort of thing. So I have fun with that. And then to answer your designer question, I'm a software designer by day. So I work for UPS designing tracking pages and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow. Well, I just interviewed someone and I asked them, what are your titles? And they said, actor, and inspirer of people. And I thought, what? And I asked him, and then it actually made perfect sense. And designers, designer makes sense as well. I was thinking like designing clothes, design.
It's funny because it really is sort of it's a way of being in some ways, just like if being an artist is a way of being. I once heard someone kind of say, design is basically just lining things up all the time. And like that's kind of true. There's a real truth to that statement. Is as silly as it kind of is, but I do go through the world trying to make sense of things, align ideas, visually put patterns together, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I know I've seen you on a set where we both did a scene but not together.
Right.
And then I've watched you in a play. You did so well, and that play was so well written.
Yeah. It was great material.
Man, it was absolutely wonderful at the KC Fringe Festival. Can you tell us, like, are you primarily theater or film?
I think the majority of my experience has been in theater, but I really like working in film and want to do that more, maybe even primarily. I where I've heard someone once describe why they love theater, and that is because, for the duration of a performance, you can just be in it and not come out of it. And they don't really like the start and stop, like get into it for 30 seconds or 5 minutes and then kind of come out and take a break. And I actually really enjoy that. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the other thing is like because it's not filmed in order. Like we get this doctor's office one day, so this is where the person gets diagnosed. This is where the person gets healed, and you have to do all those scenes and then go back or whatever. And I think that is kind of challenging.
Hmm.
Where in theater, it's all progresses at the right time. Where it's a logical time. Has the time thing ever gotten to you, Matt? Ever been tough in a film?
In terms of just like keeping the narrative straight.
Yeah, or switching, like if you do two scenes in a row, okay, this one you're dying, this one you've healed, whatever random thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just this past weekend, I was on set performing in a film that a friend is making, and there's like it's sort of a mockumentary, and so there's a series of interviews that happen throughout it, and so honestly, like the only saving grace to me to remember where we were in the timeline was what outfit I had to have on. So so that I could know like what day are we in right now. But it was same spot in a chair, new set of questions, but they all are sort of similar, but you're at sort of a different spot in the story. And so that's the thing that comes to mind right off
Yeah,
the
no, that's a great
yeah.
answer. Great answer. Um, what is your connection like to the Kansas City film industry?
Hmm.
What's your connection like your projects? You brought up writing. Um, And are you writing something currently that you want to produce here or direct here?
Yeah, I've had this idea. So let me start by kind of answering your question around like what's my connection. And I think primarily really acting. Like that is my first love. That is the art form that I identify with, that is my oxygen that I need to have in my life on a regular basis. I am kind of a control freak and I really love the creative process. And so I just naturally gravitate towards things like writing and that kind of stuff. Um, but my primary draw was really to try and meet directors, meet other actors. I'd started doing, so let's see, I was in a play several years ago at the KC Met. They did the Weir by Connor McPherson. And after I did that show, the director said, "Hey, you should really consider doing some acting coaching with Andy Garrison." And so he connected me with Andy, and I did acting coaching with Andy for a year, year and a half, or something like that, pretty straight, and got through his class connected to IFC KC, connected to, various talent agencies around, and really kind of found a core group of actors that became like a group of friends actually. And so, we kind of end up advocating for each other and other people's projects. And invariably, especially with independent film, you're on a set and someone no shows. And then the director's going, does anybody know a guy or a lady that kind of fits this demographic or age description or whatever, that's an actor that would want to pitch in? And so we kind of think of each other in those moments and that kind of thing.
That's the sad truth of free work.
Yeah.
That's the sad truth
Or
of free
paid
work.
work sometimes. I've seen
Yeah,
it
yeah,
happen with
I
paid
believe it.
work.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I haven't had
Yeah.
it happen in paid opportunities, but I have had it happen in free multiple times in free things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you
But
get started in acting then?
um when I was about 9 or 10, my family had moved to England for a couple years from the Midwest, and I was having a hard time fitting in. And they did a school play of Aladdin, and so every kid got cast in the play, and we did it for 3 nights. And each night they sort of rotated who the characters could be and that sort of thing. And I got to play Aladdin on the very first night. And I felt so seen and appreciated, I think, for the first time in a long time in that kind of context. And I also found um, it was like, for me, I know a lot of people hate like line work and learning your lines. For me, for some reason, that became a really meditative kind of thing. Like as a kid, like I just would get lost in it and could sit for hours and hours and hours just working on committing these lines to memory. And then I think, especially as a little kid, the sort of impressing the adults with being able, having learned so much when none of the other kids got even, they had maybe half of their lines, and I had everything like word for word nailed. And so I found a lot of pride in that. And then you kind of fast forward into high school, and I started getting involved in theater and that sort of
Where did you go to
thing.
high school?
I went to high school in Erie, Pennsylvania at McDowell High School.
Okay, Erie,
So
Pennsylvania.
go Trojans.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, they had a great theater department there. I think I ended up just getting in that I was a theater kid basically in high school is what that turned into. And then did it a little bit in college, and then lost it for a good 15 years, maybe a good long while. Tried to dabble here or there, and then we'd moved from whatever. I won't go over everywhere I've lived, but we moved from Dallas to Berkeley, California, to the Bay Area. And just a really vibrant theater scene there, at least compared to Dallas. And so we ended up going to catch some shows, and it just kind of lit the spark again. And my wife was like, you should take an acting class or something at the Berkeley Rep. And so I did just that. I took this, it was called a solo performance class with Sarah Feldman, I think was her name. And you basically she worked with us to craft write our own 5 minute solo performance, and then we kind of had a bunch of friends come and see it. And so that was sort of rekindled the flame and revalidated my love for this craft and that sort of thing. And when we moved to Kansas City, a friend of mine was the nanny for my boss. Her name's Devin Barnes, and she was deeply connected to the theater community and acting community in Kansas City. And so she was my sort of first connection into that community here. She got me sort of connected for the part in the Weir at the Met and that type of deal.
How long ago was that when you moved to Kansas City?
2016 or 2015, something like that. So
When
we've
you
been
first
here
said
almost
20, I
3 years.
thought you were going to say 25 years ago. Okay, 2016.
No, yeah. More like 10 years.
2016.
Yeah, 2016.
All right, good. I have a barbecue question for you later. I just wanted to make sure you
Okay.
lived here a while. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, tell me about your writing.
Yeah, so I my degree in college was in advertising, creative writing, and literature. It was sort of an individualized degree, and there was a lot of poetry mixed in there. And so I've always loved creative writing. And so over the past year or so, I've written, I don't know, a half dozen half screenplays. There's one that I'm really excited about, and I was really inspired by the independent film here, Turns, that Keisha Bannister was in, and Joel, I forget the name of the director, Joel something. Anyway, it is just like an idea I've been working on that was sort of from a personal experience a long time ago. Around it's basically two mechanics end up taking a vehicle for a little bit too of a fun test drive and believe they cause an accident, a pretty big one. And then the majority of the film is them debating about whether or not to go back. What's the right thing to do here?
Wow, that could be an
Um,
interesting story.
yeah, I think it is. I think it is. And so anyway, I saw that movie Turns and I was like, that's a lot like how I envision this thing. Ooh, maybe there's some legs to this. And so I ended up trying to kind of, it's pretty close to finished out at this point.
So, since 2016, you started plays in Kansas City. I'm just curious about how many plays have you been in the last 8 or 9 years?
Maybe three, not very
Oh,
many.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah. So I was in the Weir, and then didn't do much for a while, and then a few years ago started getting involved with improv at the Kansas City Improv Company.
Hmm.
And so a year and a half or so ago, I was on a house team there for about 6 months and have been kind of I've performed with the cast sort of off and on over the past 6 months or so. But my day job has gotten really busy, and so I've had a hard time
Sure.
committing to some of that stuff. I've been trying to focus as much time as I can on making myself available for film roles and trying to be on sets and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I have some pictures I was going to show and ask you about.
Hmm.
Don't be scared. They're your pictures. All right. There's the first one. What is this?
Okay, so this was a picture that we took from the the 1 day film festival.
Yes, I think that's
Um
what it said. I
this
think you're right.
Yeah, this summer. And so I was lucky enough to be a part of the team that won first place
Oh,
for the
wow. What was
film
your film
for the
called?
film
I was at one of those
called
things
Haunt
this year.
House. Yeah, it's called Haunt House.
Haunted
So
House.
yeah, it's up online, I think, under Aaron Stint or someone like that has it up on YouTube.
I know they do those fast festivals, and then what you see there is not what goes out in a month later. They
Yeah,
usually
yeah,
clean it
totally.
up and stuff.
Totally. No, that was a wild experience. I mean, it was so fun. And I think that is, not that live theater is necessarily not like this, but I like the um low barrier to entry around just making a film and
Yeah,
being a part of something like that, and kind of getting a bunch of people together for a day to just pitch in and bring some silly vision to life. That's just, and then, that night get together in a theater and watch it all together. That's just an amazing opportunity,
it's a fantastic experience. I've done one of the one of those short ones like that, and I liked it. And it was kind of interesting. He let us kind of make it up, and then somebody comes 2 hours late. So now they're going to be put into it too, but they haven't talked with all of us about kind of our vision. It's just so,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was interesting. It was interesting, because like you all have this plan how you're going to do it. We're going to play like we're related. We're going to do all that, and then somebody else comes in like, oh, okay, we have another person here. We got to figure this out. It was great.
Totally, totally.
Great experience. Very flexible. I like this one because you're eating potato chips. Tell me what this is.
Oh, this was on Hunter's, no, whose film? This was on
Was it Tanner's
Tanner's
Tube?
film.
Okay.
Tanner's film. I forget the name. I forget what the name of this film is. This was one of those actually where that little acting troupe of friends comes into play. My friend Asterlia England was in this movie that
Oh,
Tanner was shooting. And on the day before, like a different shoot day than this, um, earlier in the shooting schedule, I think they were down an actor. I don't know if someone didn't show up or decided they couldn't do it or whatever, or they wrote something else into the script, and they were kind of just looking. They were looking for a 40 something guy that seems like he's trying to be 20. And I was like, I could pretty much live
that's
that.
great.
I think
That's
I could
great.
play that role. Yeah. And so that was really fun because I just got to drop in for a couple days. I had like a couple of tiny lines, but Tanner was awesome because he was like, have fun with it, and had room for improvisation and that sort of thing.
Was it semi-famous?
Probably.
Oh, okay. I saw a movie. I saw your picture, and one of them was semi-famous.
Okay.
Um, and what is this? I'm going to move this, even though you and I can see the full picture, they can't. So I'm going
Yeah,
to move
yeah,
it over here a little bit. Make sure I want to get you in the picture.
totally. So this was a shot that the director of The Enemies from Within took during one of our first dress rehearsals for the Fringe show this summer. So that's me on the left playing Tobias McCluskey. And then we have Robert Vardaman there just I guess to my left in the shot. Um, and then Rebecca Ralston over there on the very right was playing Nelsie McCluskey, my wife. And kind of full circle, the first show that I was in here, The Weir, Rebecca was the stage manager for that and did
Wow.
all of the sort of accent training for us for the Irish accents.
Wow. You all did a fantastic job. I loved it. It was like I was on
Oh,
a
everybody. I mean,
podcast.
Jessica was amazing. Curtis, Scott,
Oh
Rob,
yeah.
like the whole cast was just fantastic and amazingly professional to work with. And it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, a couple things about this. It was chosen as the best one in the theater, so you did an extra day, if I remember right. And I did a podcast with somebody who was from Topeka, and they made a comment like, "Oh, too conservative here to have stuff like." Okay, she's in Topeka, not Kansas City. Kansas City,
Yeah.
like something like this, maybe in a smaller town you wouldn't be able to do, just
Hmm.
because the nature of it. But I thought, what a beautiful idea and so well executed. Um, Gosh, is it Mike Rice?
Yeah. Mike Rice wrote it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I became Facebook friends with him after watching it. Even though I don't know him, I'll probably never work with him. I just really respected him for, yeah, I have a weakness where I just think writers are tops.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, they are. Mike's a great one.
And I see Astra England.
Oh yeah, there's Australia. This I think was also semi-famous. So this was that day that so it was this day that Australia was like, "Hey Matt, I think it was like at like 11 a.m. She was like, I don't know what you have going on. It was like a Thursday. She's like, I don't know what you have going on this afternoon, but if you're free around from 2 to 4, we
Yeah.
could. Here's a script. Do you want to take a look at it? And I was like, you know what? I'd love to play hooky today. That sounds great.
Wow. So did you just take off vacation for the afternoon?
No,
Or a
I
flex
kind of
job
work,
or
I
something?
work too many hours is kind of
Oh,
what it comes down to. So, there are certainly times that I take vacation off, like I'm taking all of Thanksgiving off and I will take PTO for that. But I will be going back to work to this evening after our
okay.
podcast
You got
interview
plenty
to
of
finish
flex
up some
time.
design work and that sort of thing. Yeah. Ah, yes. Robert
That's a great
Vardaman.
one.
Um, yep. So this was after I'm not sure which performance of the enemies from within, but this was Robert and I doing a little selfie. Our characters, um, he uh, his character slashes my character's throat
Wow.
in the end of the play, and so.
Even though
Um,
in real life looks like you get along great. I always love that.
Well, and we didn't get to this nearly as much as I think either of us wanted, but after there were a few key rehearsals, and a few performances where we made sure to kind of hug it out afterwards and just, check in like this, like you're seeing here, and even if it
Oops,
was just getting like
sorry.
a silly selfie to just remind each other that we're not the characters we're playing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to get it back up. I took it down a little too quick.
No, that's
I
fine.
I
That's fine.
hovered too long and then just kind of clicks on its own. All right, I'm gonna move this out of the way so it doesn't click. What is this?
Yeah, this was the house team for Kansas City Improv Company. So this was the first one that I was on like a year and a half or so ago. And so we had a number of us on that team had been classmates together in the Improv 101 and Improv 201 classes that Tim was teaching there. And uh, right around the time that we were finishing our 201 class, they were doing auditions for the cast. And so they'd been toying with this idea of having like a house team, which, as the way I kind of put it, it's sort of like the JV team. It's kind of like the people that you're trying out to see if they'd be good cast members or that you're sort of like trying out different ideas on and that sort of thing. But they're not like necessarily part of the regular cast.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. You were the second city team on the first city. No, that's good.
Exactly.
Um, you were talking about that lines are easy for you to learn. I just wanted to know, how do you prepare for roles?
Um, I think reading over and over is probably the biggest activity that comes to mind, as I spend a lot of time with the script. I spend a lot of time with the script in different formats. So I'll print it out, and I tend to handle memorization best with something printed. I don't really know what the mechanics are or the psychology is behind that, but I like to hold a piece of paper and stand on my feet and walk around and work on the lines. But lately, I've also been running scripts through ChatGPT and going on walks with my dog and just having a conversation with AI about the script and waxing philosophical on things and that sort of thing.
Wow.
Um, it sort of replaces, one thing I've found is when you take acting classes, whether that is sort of on the side or whether you're going through school, because I've taken it through school and that sort of thing as well. Most of what you end up doing is talking about the preparation, right? It's talking about the characters. The director is working really deeply with you. I have yet to be on an actual production where that takes place, right? Like I don't find most directors on sets are 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 providing that level of feedback. on the whole, most of the directors I've worked with tend to be like primarily what I would describe as expert technicians with a vision. And the sort of acting artistry side of it. Like there's a lot of artistry in the cinematography, right? There's a lot of artistry in the editing and that sort of thing, but I haven't been on set or really honestly outside of working on during Fringe, one of the shows I did was called the Director's Cut. That was actually incredibly exciting, which was like a live rehearsal. But I don't know. I don't find that you get that a lot, right? And so you end up kind of reaching to an acting coach for that, or you reach to friends for that. And I don't know. I kind of found like chatting with ChatGPT about my scripts that I'm working on and getting its take to help me empathize with the character. That I did this with From the Enemies Within because Tobias McCluskey is an asshole. He's a terrible, terrible human and a very difficult person to empathize with. But as an actor, that's my job, right? I gotta look at this Tobias guy and see a bit of myself in him and understand where's our humanity connect here, so that I can perform this with honesty and not just make a caricature of it. And when you're actually working on a production, I've found the director is really they're thinking about the bigger picture in general. Like there are these moments that they'll have time and focus to get really in and dig in with you on something. But even then, they're expecting a lot of this preparation homework on your end for you to do this on your own time and sort of come and have it. They're not ready to spend, which makes sense, especially when it's free work and that,
Yeah.
they're not going to spend hours every week with every actor individually chatting through their whole character and that sort of thing. Now, I will say on The Enemies from Within, we spent a solid couple of weeks at least up front just doing this stuff. Just table read stuff, just talking through characters, that kind of thing. So we did have a fair amount of that, but anyway.
No, I agree with you. I do think that there are some exceptions where it's basically if the director has a clear vision and they want you to follow that vision, they have to give you some direction.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, I go out and I think somebody's supposed to be funny and they're supposed to be mean, or, like I don't know
Yeah.
what the director wants. But I have had directors who are so crystal clear on what they expect.
Hmm.
I kind of I like it, but I also like doing my own thing. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
No, what have you learned in the acting community? What have you learned?
Um, I have learned that it is better to be honest than clever. I think that that's something I learned in the solo performance class I took. She kind of said as we were writing things and even working on how do we perform this written material, um, she said a lot of times like don't be clever, just be honest, just start and being honest. And what has been really neat is I've been able to apply that same kind of idea to other areas of my life. Design work, for example. It doesn't sound exactly like don't be clever, just be honest. It sounds more like don't be clever, just be clear and just be to the point, because when you're working on designing things there's an element of artistry to some of that and you want to do a cool innovative idea and wouldn't it be neat if fill in the blank, and that's where all that sort of clever stuff comes from. But if you start there you get down these rabbit trails and you lose the main point. And I've found it's really helpful sometimes in that work to even just come back to saying let's stop being clever and just be clear for a moment. What's the clear version of this?
I like it. That's a great point. Um, you've lived in Kansas City for 8.5 to 9.5 years. Well, it's got to be
Mhm.
somewhere in that range. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so since you've moved here, you've eaten at a lot of barbecue restaurants.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody is coming from Erie, Pennsylvania that you know. You
Okay.
might not have any people there, but for whatever reason, they're coming here
They're
and
on
they
their way.
say,
Yeah.
I want to go. I only have time for one place to go to barbecue. So in other
Oh,
words, you can't go and buy French fries here and beans here and corn here and then
yeah, yeah,
ribs
yeah.
here and whatever. Like
No,
we
you
go
got to
get one
commit. You
place.
got to commit to one
You
to
got to
one
commit,
spot.
and you can have
Yeah.
some caveats if you want, but overall, what's your one place?
Oh God, that's a tough one, man.
That's the hardest question I've
Um,
asked you today. One place in the Kansas City area. It can be Kansas or Missouri.
um, I think I gotta go if they're coming from out of town and they're like, I gotta have barbecue. I only have time to go to one place, and it's gotta be like Kansas City barbecue. I think we gotta go to Joe's to the gas station. Like, I
Okay.
just think that's what we get. We just gotta go have that specific experience and wait in the line and like check out all the frisbee golf frisbees and like, you know, all of that kind of thing. Talk about how the gas station's still functional and all this kind of stuff.
The
Yeah.
same conversations everybody has.
Exactly. Every time you just got to go do that one with them, I think. So if those were, if it's someone from out of town, only time for one, and it's got to be a Kansas City thing, I think that's what I would do.
Okay, that's good. That's a good answer. You're not the first to say Joe's.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
Jack Stack,
Yeah, I mean,
Joe's,
I
like a
want
couple
to be
of them are pretty
unique. I
popular.
really want to be unique, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're unique just like everyone.
Thank you.
Great work, Matt. Um, oh my goodness, I've lost my thought. Oh, I'll ask you a random question. How do you spend your spare time when you're not acting or working?
Oh, well, I'm married. So I like to spend time with my wife. But she's also a student at Johnson County Community College getting her interior design degree, and she works as well. So we have three daughters. So I have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So two girls in college and one in high school. So pretty packed life, but I think, quite honestly, for me, nothing beats going to the movies. I just love going to the movies. That's probably my easiest, just how am I gonna kill a couple hours on an evening when I just want to chill out? I'm either gonna watch a movie at home or I'm gonna go to the movie theater probably. Outside of that, I don't do it enough, but I love paddleboarding and kayaking and being out on the water and just kind of floating. I like the outdoors, but I'm not an outdoorsy type, if that makes sense. Like, I like hiking, I don't like camping. How's that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And you don't have to say where they go to school, but are your daughters fairly close by within 4 or 5 hours? Or are they more
Uh,
a flight away? Just because I know you've lived all over.
yeah, both. No, one's within 2 hours and one is more like 13 hours away.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
So.
goodness. Okay.
Yeah, it's I'm not a fan of that. I didn't think it would bother me. I thought I'd be totally fine with it, but I've missed the crap out of her since she's been
Yeah,
gone.
that's a long way. That's a
Yeah,
long way.
yeah.
Um, so where can we see your work? Where can we see some of your stuff?
So an easy place is to go to my website, which is just mattdonovan.me, mattdonovan.me. Assuming it's not down, should be up. But I have a link. I have links to some videos like Haunt House and some of that stuff up there, and I um, occasionally update it with more stuff. I'm working on some things to make it a little more automated in that way, but um, that's probably the best place. Actually, I can't think of like another direct place to go send you necessarily.
It's okay. Actually, when I typed in Matt Donovan, I guess there's another guy who's Matt Donovan, who's maybe in lots of films and things. So I just kept getting this other guy when I was there's.
You were
I
getting
guess your
the
name's more common than I realized.
Well, you were likely getting the character name of Matt Donovan from the Vampire Diaries,
Okay, I think you're probably right because it was a
would be
young
my
guy.
guess. I've been confused with him for a long, long time. In
Yeah,
fact, like I was on Twitter very early on, which is when Twitter was first kind of getting famous, or like everybody started using it, was when that show was gaining a ton of popularity. And I kept getting these like teenage goth girl followers, and I couldn't figure out why. Like what was going on? And then I finally started like seeing who some of them were, and I started putting together like, oh, they think this is like a character account.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Hey, I saw you play a very emotional role in the play.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Very angry role for a lot of it, like, but it was really like you did such a good job. How did you put the emotions into that character since he really wasn't a lot like you in beliefs? Like, how did you put the emotions in there? Since you kind of disagree with the character, I know you try to find common ground, but that's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Um, a lot of what works for me as an actor is um, trying to find similar emotional scenarios in my life to this. Um, or not like that I'm necessarily driving to get an emotion. I'm not trying to get an emotion, but it's more like I'll read through a scene or we'll just block through it and talk through it. And once it's starting to get a little bit of that performance zhuzh to it, as you're going through it with the other scene partners. I think that's this point at which I start to recognize the emotions that it's causing in me, in general. Like as I'm just beginning to embody that character a little bit, and have a little bit of fun with it. There's just this natural emotion that creeps into that as like responses to things, and I just try and notice that. And then what I end up doing is, as I'm preparing later, or just thinking about it, or ruminating on it, or working on it in later rehearsals, I'm really trying to think about what are other scenarios in my life when I've felt that specific brand of embarrassment, maybe, right? Like that, like, so for Tobias, for example, like Tobias is really driven, like he's really trying to gain control and dominance in every scenario. But why is that, right? Like why is he trying to do that? And when you start going why, I can go, when have I tried to gain control and been a little more domineering or authoritarian in my life? Because we all do these things on a continuum. Tobias is just a very extreme end of that continuum. But like I've been masochistic before, right? Like I've been racist before. Like I've had these unmerited, unwarranted, ridiculous prejudices in my past, whether it was racial or about anything else, right? Like it could be, sometimes I'll liken it to like a work thing where I had this fear of meeting with somebody over and over and over until I finally realized they weren't the scary monster I thought that they were. And so I think for me, that's kind of how I inject that sort of thing into bias. And so right before I go on stage, I'm doing a little bit of just like getting back into those headspaces, remembering what those moments were for me, and just getting into it, remembering it a little bit, trying to like embody it a little bit. And then I just have that like it's almost like a whiff of that emotion. And then that's what I carry with me on stage, or when the director calls action or whatever, and into the scene.
That's a fantastic answer. My next question, do you have a range? Like, can you play like you're in love? Can you play like you're happy? Can you play like you're angry, sad? I mean, do you have like, I'm giving simple emotions, but like, do you have emotional range? Which one do you feel fits the best? And is there any that you try to avoid?
I try to avoid the angry thing. I get cast as it a lot.
Okay.
And I think I don't know if it's like my dad's not like an angry guy per se, but he's like a pretty stern, we're very different in that way. Like I'm much more of a bubbly kind of warm personality. My dad's a much, borderline kind of prickly sort of personality to a
Hmm.
degree. And so I think I have just a lot of, I don't know, stuff tucked there in the back of my lizard brain that's easy to access for that angry stuff. Um, I think I probably stuffed a lot of anger down too. So there's a lot of it that, I just sort of get to therapize, like tap into it a little bit and let it out and just kind of let off some steam through those performances and kind of transfer that anger into this scene moment or whatever. Never on the actor, like don't want to get abusive or anything like that, but um, I don't know. I really enjoy the challenge of playing a range. I think oddly enough, I feel like the thing I struggle with the most is comedy. But I think that's because comedy is just hard to do well. I think comedy is just hard to really pull off well. And so you just, as you're trying to, you feel, you feel
Hmm.
like you feel yourself failing at it, sort
That
of.
was probably hard in improv for you then. That was probably hard.
Definitely was, and I think that was one of the reasons I sort of, at least for now, have let my foot off the gas on improv just a little bit, is because it doesn't the best improv is when you're not trying to be funny. Well, you're still trying to be funny. Like the reason you're all out there is to get laughs. Like if you don't get any laughs in the show, it didn't go very well.
Sure.
And I don't like the feeling of trying to get laughs. I don't like that feeling. Um, and so I like the feeling of getting them for sure, but I like it when they're a surprise.
Gotcha.
Or when it's not necessary, but it's additive.
I'm gonna have you
So
move to the middle. I can't.
dang,
I can't help.
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll see later if
My
you were in the
chair
middle.
kind of
Well,
rolls like
yeah,
Dr. Evil.
it's okay. I just know it's going to edit it down. Um, so you get emotions. You kind of borrow emotions, and you're able to do that with some, but not others. Is there any that are struggles, like on the emotions? Comedy might be the style, but
Sure.
any emotions that are harder. I give an example. I'll give you an example first. Like for
Yeah.
me, like I love my wife and kids, but I feel like it would look so fake if I pretended I loved somebody else. I just feel like it would look so fake. I don't know if I could do it like effectively.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, like I could do it. I just don't know if I would fool myself or fool anyone else to thinking that I love this lady beside me who I just met 2 hours ago. I just don't think I could do it. Do you have
Uh-huh.
anything like that, where you think this one is going to be hard, or are you just all of them seem natural?
I think it really depends on who you're paired with, especially
Okay.
with the loved one. I think on my website there's a scene that I did with Astra Leah in Andy's class from oh, what was it from? Um, Terms of no, not Terms of Endearment. Um, I'm gonna have to look it up. I don't remember the title. Anyway, it's this romantic exchange between uh, uh, two people just basically discussing having an affair in between the lines. And so it's kind of a steamy scene, but Astralia and I know each other. We're comfortable with each other. It was easy to kind of work through the intimacy challenges there and get to a spot um, where you could kind of play around with that. It felt like, I will admit, like it, even in that moment in class, right? Like maybe it's weirder because it's a friend. I don't know. It feels weird to be flirting, It feels weird to be giving this person those eyes. It feels strange and awkward and wrong in some ways to be standing near her this way and talking to her with this tone and with the things that I'm saying. But then, you do it 5 times in a row.
Yeah,
And it starts to lose that awkwardness, and you
gotcha.
start to, it starts to lose that awkwardness, and you start to, I don't know, it's almost like the multiverse. You start to see all the variations on this moment, and it becomes a little bit easier to find your version of that emotion. I think honestly, that's one of the things I enjoy most about acting is the process of getting to that place I'm not currently at. I've got a script in hand. I go from cold read, and this is an emotional scene. It's full of
Oh,
heartache and tears, and like I'm not feeling it. How am I
yeah.
going to get there? And how am I going to get there in a true and reliable, honest way? I so love that process. And I am so fueled by the moment when you get to perform it and it kind of lands or it starts to land and then it gets a little bit better. I really love that so much. Um, and I think maybe for me, that feels like the one thing that I have in my life that feels like a real unique talent, that I just
Awesome.
like, I know that I'm good at and I really love doing more than anything else. And everything else I do in life, I feel like I'm relatively like serviceable at. This feels like something like, I don't know, just love it.
That's awesome. What words of advice would you offer the viewers? Any advice? It can be on writing, acting, life in general.
Um, Show your work, share your work with somebody. Um, you know, I think I mentioned I've got, a half dozen half written screenplays and that sort of thing. And every time I decide to just send something to someone to read and spark up a little conversation about it, that's really life-giving, And it's crazy how many times that can turn into something more than just that moment. Um, it might not be like right away, but those, I don't know. I would say just share your work, share what you're doing. People like we want to see it. Um, because especially for actors, um, I think we really struggle to have community in the way that other theater industry folks or film industry folks have community. Um, we we cannot do our craft without the others. like we have to have at least an audience, but if we have an audience we better have something to perform, so we kind of needed a writer, right? Like, but like we don't want to be writers. I mean, I would like to be, I like writing, but I really want to be an actor. And so, writers can all get together and kind of work on their material together and that sort of thing. Cinematographers can get together and kind of show each other the stuff that they're working on. Like editors can trade tricks and kind of work on edits together. And I don't know, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like
no,
we really struggle to find each other, which is why I'm such a fan of this podcast. And we really struggle to figure out what the fuck to do together once we get together. I think we kind of get together. It's like, yay, we're together. And there's a bunch of us that are kind of extroverts. And so we're like, we have a good time, but we'd love to like work on something together. But then we have to bring in all these other disciplines.
I like it. I love it when people think different than me. I just love the way the actors want to work together, but we got to bring in other people. I just like that,
Yeah.
just that thought process. Yeah. Do you go to IFC meetings?
I do when I remember them. Yeah, I have
Okay.
trouble seeing the Facebook notifications and remembering that kind of
Well,
stuff,
I
but
go to two or three a year. I don't think I've ever seen you there, but I didn't know you probably
probably
at the
not.
time.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I go to two or three a year. I think that is the most valuable gift to actors in Kansas City. I mean, that is. outstanding.
100%.
I know Will Carter, who was on the show, he talked about bringing in that 1 minute film every month.
Yeah.
You can do a 1 minute film, and it's
Yeah.
just a way to give people things to do, to perform, to direct, to practice editing. I mean, that's how you get better at things. You practice them and then you do them. So I really like
Completely,
it that
completely
they're
agree.
thinking that way.
Yeah. No, I mean, to be clear, I mean, without IFCKC, I don't think I wouldn't have been on screen in anything since moving here. It's all come
Wow,
through that.
wow, that's great though. Any words of wisdom before we head off? Anything that I forgot to ask you about? Basically, anything you want to say?
Anything I want to say. Um, no, I want to say thank you. Thank you for doing this podcast. Thank you for, I think I heard you say something recently about, really wanting to build a catalog or an archive of like the local kind of talent. And I've had a similar vision and desire and dream. And so I really appreciate what you're doing here. I think it's so encouraging to listen to stories from other artists like ourselves, who are learning new things and teaching us new things and struggling with the same kind of stuff too. Um, I think I heard a quote a long, long time ago, and I've based a lot of things in my life on it, but that's just that, we're all just beggars pointing one another to bread at the end of the day. And happy to come collect some crumbs and hand some out, I guess.
Wow, I like it. You've said a lot of beautiful things. I really, really love that, Matt. Thank you. I hope to work with you again
Yeah.
someday. Hope to see you on set or at the IFCKC. I'm there 2 or 3 times a year. If we overlap, I'll see.
Yes. Yes.
Sounds like you are too.
Well, I'm there a little more frequently. I'd say I probably end up going every couple of months. I'd say is about how frequently I go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, hey, I will see you there then.
All right. Sounds good, Kyle.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.